The subject actually involves the global governance, multilateralism. Let me share with you some points very briefly. Number one, we should all support the United Nations. Not because I used to be Under Secretary General of the United Nations, because United Nations is the largest intergovernmental platform or organization. So far, cannot be replaced. And secondly, the UN Charter and resolutions adopted by the United Nations are still the yardsticks for international behaviors of all countries in their international relations. Thirdly, United Nations is doing a fantastic job. We are talking about climate change, we are talking about sustainable development, we are talking about biodiversity. These are really the efforts made by the United Nations. And if we are going to get rid of this organization, I think the world will start to think of another one. So let's support the United Nations, point number one. Point number two, China is a strong supporter of multilateralism. China was the world's first among the founding members of the organization. China was the first to sign the UN Charter. And China, the track record is the best among the major countries in terms of peace and security. And China has been supporting multilateralism. So people are talking about rule-based international order. So ask one question, don't be shy. What do you mean by rules? If you mean UN Charter, you mean conventions, international laws, we support you all. If you think the laws and regulations of your own making, sorry, we don't buy it. Number three, we see the international organization structures have so many problems. I think everyone can stand up and say a lot. I just pinpoint two very important issues. One is double standard. Now, some major countries, they treat themselves and treat other countries with different sets of double standards. That is very harmful. It's already resulting very dangerous consequences. So this is point number one. Just like German Chancellor said in last May, he was saying to the effect, people do not against our principles. They are against double standards. Now, second point I'm trying to make is, once you have made a promise, you have to honor it. Let's say ODA. That is a very, very familiar term in this part of the world. In 1970s, the United Nations, they adopted a strategy that urged the developed countries to allocate 0.7% of their GNA as ODA. After 50 years, if you look at OECD reports, every year among close to 30 developed countries, only 4 to 5 countries reach their target. And recently, the Paris Climate Change Agreement, they promised $100 billion for climate change every year. Just now in the financing summit in Paris, the developing countries are urging loud and clear, where are the money? If in the international arena, you will see the promises are easily broken or mean nothing, you will lose the confidence, you will lose your credibility. Now the way out. The international organization or governance is really managed by agreement of consensus. If there is a consensus, there has to be common understanding. The common understanding has to go beyond the differences of ideologies, and the differences between religions, and differences between stages of economic development. Otherwise, there will be no common understanding at all. On this point, I just say the President of China, he put forward the concept of community with a shared future. Don't get panic, because this is put forward by China. There's a sinister idea behind it. The key points for that is...
Ambassador Wu, thank you.
I'm reaching for to the end, okay?
Thank you.
The key point is the world with a lasting peace, universal security, common prosperity, openness and inclusiveness, and clean and beautiful environment. So that's the idea. Before I'm going to wind up, I just raise one point. Please broaden our visions. The world is not only United States, China. It's not China and the West. We have only 2 billion people altogether. What about the other 6 billion people? Their views, their ideas, their concerns must be heeded. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.